Recently, a photo club that I belong to was having a workshop on Photoshop post-processing, and I was asked to share some of my steps and what do I do. So I decided the best way to do it would be through video. So I put together, which you'll see following this slide, several little short segments that show the steps that I used to make the 8 photos that you see here on this introductory slide. This is an example of a transformation of a photo I took at Chanticleer where I wanted just one flower to stand out. I look back for my files and the copy I kept with some layers, I didn't have all the layers in it, so I tried to recreate some things. We'll see how this comes out. But this is where it starts from the original flower to the create version. So first we need to just have the flower that I want. Now what I often do in selecting subject is some people will select in mask. I tend to select in copy. But of course here it's selected a lot more than I want, so I'll hold down the Alt key. Again, since I use a pen, I'll just take out those portions that I don't want. And I say I like having a pen. I get much more control than with the mouse. Okay, what else do I need to add in? A little bit here, take something out here. And I know I can do some additional cleanup after. That looks about right. So I'm going to do Control C, Control V, copy and paste. And what I have is just a cutout that I want. Now, if I want to clean that up a little bit, I can just hit my E for eraser, and erase it. Sometimes you might want to smooth out the edges with a soft brush, but I think considering what the background is going to be, I don't need to do that here. So the next thing I'm going to take, and I'm going to move this up to the top where I already have one from before. Now, the next thing, as you recall from this one, it had a darker background. So it was like, how did I get this dark background? I don't know. So I decided to try to recreate it. And I think what I did was make a copy of the background. And it appears I may have gone to Camera Raw and decreased the exposure, maybe increase the contrast, decrease the highlights maybe a little, decrease the clarity a bit, and then maybe when you get down here in the color mixer, maybe taking the yellows down a bit, and also the luminance of the yellows down a bit. Now this won't be so it gives me an okay. Alrighty, it's not, that's what the original version looked like. And let me take this other picture out here. That's what the original was, and this is what I came up with. So I think I'm pretty close. So then added a texture and put it at 55%. So some of that darkened background shows through. I wanted this to be, I did add a smart filter because you can see this is dark. I wanted it a little bit brighter. Put the flower back on the top, and I have my transform. The next example is changing color to black and white. I know this is something many people in the group do, so this is mainly for individuals that haven't tried it yet. This is a photo taken at Michener Museum with a point and shoot this year. And so we're just going to run through a couple of things, and I'll try to do it quickly. First, I want to crop it down, and I'm going to do it as an 8x10. So again, I'm going to do things. I'm just going to try to do them quickly here. Okay. Next, next we're going to bring this down to an 8x10, but the resolution is at 180. I want to make it 300. and make this 8. I'm going to save it that way. Want to look at the full screen. And I think this would be a good point to clean it up a little bit. As I say, I'm just doing a couple of quick cleans. Oh, it looks okay for now. Then to go up to filter, I'll still bring it into camera raw just to see if there's anything that'll happen if I click on automatic. I like the way it brightened it up. And this is also a chance to see what would it look like in black and white. It's okay, it's a lot brighter than I want, but I like the way it looks. So we're going to take that back off, and I'm just going to save this. Okay, the next, I'm going to go down, do Nik, open the color. Again, I'm going to use one of my favorite go-tos, which is tonal contrast. Pick the first one and apply it. Like the way it looks, but now I do want my black and white. So again, go back to filter, again, Nik, but this time Silver Excess Pro. A lot of choices here, but instead of running through them, I'm not sure which one I used, but it may have been number 15. I'm going to apply that. So there is the version in color. There's in black and white. And at this point, I would probably do a few other things like denoise and so on. But this is, I think, is enough just to show a conversion. Now that I've worked on the picture in RAW and brought it into Photoshop, it's time to find out if I want to just finish doing a simple processing or if I want to try playing. I thought I saw something in this picture, wanted to play with it and see if I could find a way to open the doors so that I could go from the raw picture to this JPEG. I did keep playing and found a way to do it. The first thing I did was go into Filter, Nik Collection, FX Pro, and that's where I could easily adjust the tonal contrast. I chose the first choice and applied that. The next thing I did was go into Topaz Denoise and just do some basic sharpening and adjustment on the noise level. So now that we've gotten this far, it's like, how do I get the doors open? And that's what I'm going to try and illustrate. The first thing was to cut out the doors, and I cut out both the left door and the right door and decided time to start playing. So looking here first at the left door, I went into Transform, Skew, and started changing the shape of the door. And also now with the right-hand door, need to change the shape of the door, and doing this with Skew. Okay, so we changed the shape, but the doors aren't open. So how do I get that? So again, go back to Edit, Transform, only this time go to Distort, and open the doors. And then I'll open the other door. And the other door is now open. But of course, what we see underneath is the doors that are in my previous layer. Well, I made a copy of the last denoise layer and put it in the stack, which is right here. And I'm going to switch from where I just showed you how I open the doors to the version that is in my original picture. But I wanted to get rid of what's behind here, so I put on a layer mask and I masked out where I thought part of the room would be. Searched and found a picture of a living room. Thought, well, that looks like it might be what's in this house. not at the angle that I would like it. So I then took it and maybe skewed it a little bit, turned it a little bit, and I was able to get the picture to go from the original to my fun play. This is an example of a photo I started with from Wrightstown Fair, which I transformed from one photo into what's seemed to be more fun. So how did I get there? I started out with the main photo, and I really only wanted the prime subject. So I needed to cut that out or select subject. Unfortunately, I'm not sure which method I used to select subject. It did not do a very good job on this one. So I did need to go in and clean it up, which is something I did. And when I cleaned it up, it looked a bit better. In my case, I probably used, for this one, my pen and an eraser. And in the process of doing that, I did remove a few things like part of a tire, which I just put back in, and some bits and pieces of grass that should have been there. So now that we have the photo ready to work on, it's time to add the fun backgrounds. So the first background I added was this one, which I thought had a bit of a dirt road and a little bit of sky. Then I'll often try various overlays to see if I get the look I want. The first one I put in, I did not care for. So then another one I tried was this one, which is called Starry Nights. And I put that on, and then as far as the blending mode, did hard light. The question comes, well, where are these overlays? In my case, I keep them in a separate folder, but to get to them is you go to File, Place Embedded, go to wherever you keep your textures, overlays, and patterns. And for me, it's on the cloud. I'll go down to the one that's here that I'm using, which is called Starry Nights. I place that in, blend it over to fit. Yeah, I need to move it over a little bit. Blend it over and fit, and then put it in as hard light. The next thing to be added is I wanted fog. So I put in fog. Again, I'm going to show where did I get my fog. But it was a little bit more fog than I wanted, so I put a mask on to take out where I didn't want the fog, as well as set it at only 78%. So let's add some fog. Again, go File, Place Embedded, Textures, and this is in an overlay from AllShop called my fog folder. And I used fog number 14, which I placed in, moved it to where I thought I would want it, accepted it, and now I need a blend mode of lighten, and this is where it then comes into adding a mask to get other things I want now, and I'm going to put this at like 44% so I can take out just what I want. Maybe I want a little bit less in some spots. Well, I can go back over and take out a little bit more until you get just the look that you want. Again, I'm doing this quickly. The original one had that as my overlay. So this was example one of how I went from this to that. Thank you. This will be another picture that started from the Wrightstown Fair in the area where, one of the buildings where they had displays of flower pieces people have done for competition. So this is the after photo, and this is the before. So I saw it, I saw something in it and thought, where can I go with this? Of course, the first thing I did was cut out the main subject, and I made a copy of that and moved it up a little higher. I'm just going to click on it now and straightened it. put in a different background. Added another layer underneath, which I masked part of it out, to sort of give it, I wanted this brown tone underneath that I realized as I kept going. Pulled in a overlay, and this is like a pink overlay, because you can see it up here in the top. You'll see the changing in the shading of the pink. If I were to change the opacity, I think you could see further how that shading had changed. And it just sort of brought in just the right amount of pink that I wanted for the background. Then added another texture on top of that. And that was the basic part. Then there would be layer, flatten. And it's time to add the shadow, the frame. So we're going to make this a little bit smaller. Go to Filter, Topaz Studio. Continue. Add filter. I'm going for digital frame. I'm going to pick the frame color first, and I'm going to pick one that I found. For this, it's called French Tuck. That's going to be my choice there. I'm going to go back up and pick up the rest. So we'll do a frame size, maybe just a little bit bigger. Matte ratio. That looks good for matte ratio. Image depth. This is where we're going to start to see a little bit of shadow. And adjustments can be made here of how much you want to see the shadow. Same with the shadow on the frame. I'm not going to go into a lot of that. I'm going to say, I think that looks pretty good. Click Accept. And we now have the finished product. I came across some pictures of spheres and couldn't remember how I did them. So for this project, I ended up learning how to do it again. Apparently it was a creative day, and that's what I decided to learn. I started with this picture from Feeney's, moved it into Photoshop and got this picture, then went on to Smart Photo Editor. So let's see if I can recreate. I've already brought the picture into Photoshop, put it through raw, tonal contrast, a few minor changes, as well as cropping it to a square. The next step is we want to use the elliptical marquee tool and draw out a nice circle. Let's just get it located to just where I want it. It looks good. And now going to do Select, Inverse, and delete the background. Deselect that. The next thing I like to do is add my new background. I'm going to use one of my embedded ones. I'm going to go ahead and embed it, I should say. Choose a background that I like, and I think I'm going to use this one. And by doing the background first, it gives me a chance to really see what's happening as I move forward here. Now is to go to Filter, Distort, Spherize, leave it at 100% and do OK. It's a bit larger than was wanted for this picture, so it's now going to transform, scale, bring it down a little bit. I'm going to move it back into around the center. Now that I have that, I want to add a little more dimension to it. So we're going to go down here, add a bevel and emboss, as well as a drop shadow. Accept that. And I now think it has a bit more dimension. At this point, I could do a few other things, but for this project today, I'm going to do a layer, flatten, file. And we're now going to go over to Smart Photo Editor, because I want to show this for anyone who hasn't used this. So we're going to open my image and now go up into the Effects Gallery. There's a lot of different choices you can go with. But just to get some examples of some, the grid view is where you can kind of pick up a few quick things. You can see it goes a lot of really different directions. You might even want to go by an artist and do it as an oil. What would it look like as an oil? And so I want to say with this is if you haven't tried Smart Photo Editor in your creative side, give it a try. Just want to use this as an example of a quick and simple composite. A couple of the assets used in this was grass from St. Augustine and baby giraffes from Disney. So where we're going with that? I started with a background from Daily Textures, and with the baby giraffes, I selected subjects, cut them out, and put them into the photo. Figured needed an appropriate type of tree, so I found one and pasted it in. But we need some other grasses here. So these are the grasses from St. Augustine, and they're only in it 39%. But I wanted a little more grass over the feet of the baby giraffes. So I put in another layer and appropriately masked them. And then to give it the different textural feel, added another daily texture called Power. And that gave it sort of an older feel. The next thing I wanted to do was to put like a frame around it. I could have used something from Topaz or from Nik, but I wanted to do it by extending the canvas itself. So for that, I do layer, flatten, yes, image, canvas size, and I want to do this in inches. And I'll call it 10.25, height 8.25. And I want the extension color to be white. So we'll put OK. Now, if I wanted to go out a little bit larger, maybe with a color that's in it, I do a color picker. Maybe pick this shade of brown. And I could then do image, canvas size. Again, we're going to make it just a little bit bigger. And I'm going to make it the foreground color. Okay. So I've now got the brown around it, and just even further to enhance it, I might do again a canvas size. Change this up to 11 by 9 and make it the white again. And you now have the picture framed out. I'm going to try to do a little quick demo of something called Step and Repeat. This is something that I stumbled across last year. I saw a picture on Facebook. It was a reference to done in Step and Repeat, which prompted me to look at YouTube to find out how to do it. So instead of a long tutorial on how it was done, I'm going to just try to give a quick overview. So you start with a picture. It can be of architecture, or birds, of flowers. It can be whatever you're finding interesting, and then just cut out your main subject. I've tried to do a few things here to speed this up. Then I made this one in black and white, which is what I wanted, and resized it. The instructions said to add a drop shadow, which I have done here. Next step is to move this to where you want to work on it. And since I'm using Windows, I'll be using Windows shortcuts, which are Control-T to transform. Going to rotate this. I like where it is. Next step is to make a copy, Control-J. And again, Control-T for transform, and move the pivot point to where you want it to rotate, which for me would be at the end of this little stick. Move that, not quite where I want it, there. Next is to choose the angle, and that's where you go up here at the top. For the angle, recommended amount was 18 degrees. I'm going to do it at 36 degrees. 18 degrees was so that it meant it would take 20 objects to go a full circle. I'm going to have it at 10. So I'm going to type in here 36 degrees. And you now see I have another item or another subject, and it is rotated. Next step, Control J again, Control Alt T. It repeats what I just done for a transform. And I could do that a number of additional times. Or an easy way is to make your own action. So that's to go over to actions. You click on the little plus thing here, start an action. It'll let you start recording. So I would do Control J, Control Shift T. It would record that. And then I could just click to work the rest of the way through. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to, since the only thing I have visible is what I've just worked on, I'm going to do Layer, Merge Visible, and I'm just going to pull this down to where I like it as far as center. And add in a background. I think what I'd like now to see is a little bit of a frame around it or a border. So I can do maybe like layer, flatten, filter, just go over to Nick, choose image borders, pick a border, say OK, and you very quickly have a creative piece of art.